night security guard at St. Clare, as regional for 2 years and 4 months. I know every corridor, every stairwell, every fire exit. I know which doors stick in the humidity and which elevators rattle after midnight. I know this building the way you know your own body, every scar, every creak, every place that aches when the weather changes. But there is one room I don't know, and I am not supposed to. Room 412 is on the 4th floor, East Wing, past the old pediatric ward that closed in 2019. The hallway narrows there, the ceiling drops a few inches. The fluorescent tubes are older, the kind that hum at a frequency that settles behind your teeth. The linoleum changes from white to a pale institutional green that hasn't been manufactured since the 90s. Room 412 is at the end of that hallway. Heavy steel door. Deadbolt, a laminated sign that reads, "Do not enter, biohazard, authorized personnel only." My supervisor, Dave, told me about it on my first night. He pointed at it on the floor plan and said, "You never open that door, you never check inside. You walk past it and you keep walking." I asked him what was in there. He said, "Storage, old equipment, nothing you need to worry about." I believed him. For 2 years, I believed him. I walked past room 412 every night on my rounds. 11 p.m., 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m. And I never gave it a second thought. Until 3 weeks ago. It was a Tuesday, my 1 a.m. round. The motion sensors in that corridor have been broken for months and nobody has fixed them. I had my flashlight on, sweeping the hallway the way I always do. Check the doors, check the windows, check the fire extinguishers. Move on. I was 10 feet from room 412 when I heard it. Scratching from inside the door, not the sound of pipes or settling walls. I know those sounds. This was deliberate, rhythmic, like fingernails dragged slowly across the other side of the steel. I stopped. I stood there with my flashlight, pointed at the door, and I listened. The scratching stopped. Then a voice, muffled like it was coming through several inches of wall, but clear enough. Daniel, my name, not security, not hey. Daniel, I've never told anyone at this hospital. My first name, my badge says, D. Marsh. Dave calls me Marsh, the nurses call me Night Guy. Nobody here knows me as Daniel. I backed away from the door. I finished my round. I went back to the security desk, and I sat there for a long time, staring at the monitors, telling myself it was the building settling, telling myself it was a patient who wandered into the wrong wing. But the East Wing has been locked since 2019. The keycard access was deactivated. Nobody goes up there. Nobody can go up there. The next night, I held it against the door during my 1M round. Nothing, silence. I stood there for 12 minutes and heard nothing. The night after that, Wednesday, the scratching came back, louder this time. And the voice, "You brought a recorder last night, Daniel. I heard you breathing on the other side of the door. I was breathing too. Were you listening?" I dropped the recorder. It hit the linoleum and the sound echoed down the empty hallway like a gunshot. I picked it up with shaking hands and I walked, not ran. Walked because running would mean I was afraid. Back to the security desk. I pulled up the hospital, its floor plans on the computer. The digital archive goes back to the original construction in 1971. I found the 4th floor, East Wing. I found the pediatric ward. I found the storage rooms, the nurse stations, the utility closets. Room 412 does not exist on any floor plan. Not the 1971 originals, not the 1989 renovation, not the 2004 expansion. According to every blueprint ever filed with this hospital, the East Wing hallway ends at the concrete wall. There is no room at the end of that corridor. But I've been walking past it for 2 years. I've touched the door. I've read the sign. It is there. I went to Dave the next morning. I told him about the scratching, the voice, the floor plans. I watched his face change. Not surprise, not concern. Recognition. He closed his office door. He sat down. He looked at me for a long time before he spoke. Marsh, he said, the guy who had your job before you. He asked about that door too. What happened to him? He opened it. Dave wouldn't. Did he say anything else? He told me to forget about it. That my job was to walk the rounds and file the reports and go home at 6 in the morning. He said the door was there for a reason, and the reason was not my business. I went home. I tried to sleep. I couldn't that night. Last night, I did my rounds. 11 p.m. East Wing. Nothing. 1 a.m. East Wing. The door was open, not unlocked, open, wide open. The deadbolt was still engaged. I could see the bolt extended from the edge of the door, but the door was open, swung inward, revealing darkness so complete my flashlight beam seemed to stop a few feet inside. And from that darkness, the voice came again. Clearer now, closer, like it was standing just on the other side of the threshold. I've been waiting for you, Daniel, not the other guards, not the ones before them, you. I didn't go in. I closed the door. It swung shut easily, like it wanted to be closed again, and I walked away. But here is the thing. Here is what I can't stop thinking about. When I closed the door, my flashlight caught something on the wall inside. Just for a second. Just long enough. Photographs. Hundreds of them, covering every inch of the wall. And the one my light landed on. The one right at eye level, right where someone would put it if they wanted you to see it first, was a photograph of me sleeping in my own bed, taken from inside my bedroom. I don't live alone. I never have. But the angle of that photograph, it was taken from the closet. I am writing this from the security desk. It is 4:17 a.m. My shift ends at 6. I have to go back to the East Wing for my 5 a.m. round. I don't think I am going to. Mr. Henderson lived at number 14 for 31 years. He was a retired history teacher, 7th grade, Lincoln Middle School, and the kind of neighbor who remembered your birthday and left zucchini on your porch in August, whether you wanted it or not. His house was a standard 3-bedroom ranch built in 1974, identical to mine except his siding was blue and mine was white. I'd been inside maybe a dozen times over the years, for block parties, for the Super Bowl. Once when my power went out and he let me charge my phone, I knew his house, or I thought I did. He asked me to water his plants. He was going to visit his sister in Portland for 10 days. He handed me the key, showed me where the cat food was. He had an old tabby named Biscuit and said, "Just the kitchen plants and the ferns in the living room, that is all." The first 3 days were routine. I'd go over at 7 in the morning, fill the watering can, do the kitchen herbs and the living room ferns, feed Biscuit, leave. 10 minutes, tops, on the 4th day. Biscuit wasn't in the kitchen. She wasn't in the living room. I called for her, and she didn't come. I walked through the house, bedroom, bathroom, guest room, laundry, and I couldn't find her anywhere. I was about to check the garage when I noticed something. The hallway between the guest room and the laundry room was longer than it should have been. I'd walked this hallway a dozen times. It was 8 feet long. I know because I'd helped Mr. Henderson carry a bookshelf through it, and we'd measured the wall to make sure it would fit. 8 feet, 2 doors on the left, 1 on the right, blank wall at the end. But now there was a door at the end of the hallway. A plain white door, no handle, just a small brass knob, the kind you'd find in a closet. It hadn't been there the day before. I was certain of that. I'd looked at that wall, I'd hung a framed photograph on that wall for Mr. Henderson 2 years ago, a picture of his late wife at the Grand Canyon. And there was no door. The photograph was gone now. The nail was still in the wall, but the frame wasn't. And where the photograph had hung, there was a door. I stood there for a long time. I could hear Biscuit somewhere, a soft, muffled meowing that seemed to come from behind the door. That is what made me open, not curiosity, the cat. The knob turned easily. The room beyond was small, maybe 10 feet by 12. No windows. A single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, already lit, casting a flat yellow light. The walls were painted white, not the white of the rest of the house, but a stark, clinical white, the kind of white they use in hospitals. There was a wooden chair in the center of the room, and on the walls, every wall, floor to ceiling, were photographs. Hundreds of them, maybe more, taped directly to the paint, overlapping in places, arranged in rows like a timeline. Some were Polaroids, some were printed on regular paper, some were old, yellowed at the edges. Some looked recent. I stepped closer to the nearest wall. They were all of me. Me in my kitchen, making coffee. Me on my couch, watching television. Me in my bedroom, reading before sleep. Me in my bathroom. My bathroom, brushing my teeth. The angles were wrong. They were taken from inside my house, from doorways, from hallways. Some were taken from above, from the top of the stairs, from the attic hatch. One was taken from what appeared to be underneath my bed. The oldest photograph showed me moving into the house. I recognized the boxes, the rental truck, the shirt I was wearing. That was 4 years ago, 4 years of photographs. The newest one, the one closest to the door, the one placed where whoever sat in that chair would see it first, showed me sleeping. Last night, I could tell because of the book on my nightstand, the one I'd started 2 days ago. Biscuit was sitting on the chair. She looked at me and meowed. The same soft, muffled sound I'd heard through the door. She seemed fine, unbothered. Like she'd been in this room 1,000 times before. I took a photograph of the room with my phone. I took pictures of every wall, every angle, every photograph I could see. Then I picked up Biscuit, closed the door, and left. I went home. I locked every door and every window. I called the police. They came. 2 officers. They were polite. They went to Mr. Henderson's house with me. They walked through the hallway. There was no door. The hallway was 8 feet long. 2 doors on the left, blank wall at the end. The framed photograph of Mr. Henderson's wife was hanging where it had always been. They looked at me the way people look at you when they think you're losing it. They asked if I'd been sleeping well. They asked if I was under stress. They left. I checked my phone. The photographs I'd taken, they were all of an empty white room. No chair, no photographs on the walls. Just white, empty, like the room had been cleaned while I was calling the police. Mr. Henderson comes home tomorrow. I have his key. I have to give it back. I don't know if I should tell him what I saw, or if I should pretend it never happened. But I know one thing. He's been inside my house. For 4 years, he's been inside my house. The apartment was cheap. That should have been the first warning. 1 bedroom, hardwood kitchen, 3rd floor of a 6-unit building on Maple Street. $650 a month. Utilities included, in a neighborhood where everything else was $1,200 minimum. The landlord said the previous tenant left suddenly. Family emergency. He said it the way people say things they don't want you to ask about. Quick, flat, already turning toward the door. I didn't ask. I was broke and desperate, and the place was clean. Fresh paint, new carpet in the bedroom, a window that faced south and let in real sunlight. I signed the lease the same day. The first week was fine. I unpacked, arranged furniture, hung shelves in the living room, normal things, new apartment things. It was while I was hanging the second shelf that I found it. I was using a stud finder, running it along the wall, when it beeped at a spot that didn't make sense. Too wide for a stud, too narrow for a pipe. I tapped the wall. It sounded hollow in a way that drywall shouldn't. Not the normal hollow of an empty wall. Something different. Something that sounded like a space that wasn't supposed to be there. I took a utility knife and cut a small square. The drywall came away easily, too easily, like it had been cut before and patched over. Behind it was a gap, maybe 8 inches wide, 6 inches deep, between two studs. Inside the gap was a bundle wrapped in black plastic, sealed with packing tape. About the size of a hardcover book. I pulled it out, cut the plastic. Inside was a journal, a moleskine, black cover, elastic band still intact. The pages were filled with small, tight handwriting in blue ink. The first page said, "If you are reading this, you live here now. I am sorry." I sat on the floor and started reading. The journal belonged to a woman named Sarah Chen. She moved into the apartment in March 2023. The first entries were ordinary. Complaints about the water pressure, notes about which grocery store was closest, a list of restaurants to try. The tone changed around page 12. I keep hearing something at night. Not the pipes. I know what pipes sound like. This is different. It is inside the walls. Like something moving through the spaces between the studs. Something small. Something that knows the layout. The entries after that came faster. The handwriting got smaller, more cramped, like she was trying to fit more words onto each page. The 14th of April, I woke up and my kitchen knife was on the counter. I always put it in the drawer. Always. I checked the locks. All engaged, the chain was still on. My toothbrush was wet when I came home from work. I live alone. I haven't used it since this morning. May 3, I set up my laptop to record while I sleep. I need to know if I am doing this to myself. Sleepwalking or something. I need to know. The next entry was 3 pages long. May 4, I watched the recording. I didn't move all night. At 2:17 a.m., the wall behind my bed, the same wall where I found this journal, opened. Not a door, the drywall just folded inward, like it was made of paper, and something came out. I can't describe it. I've watched the recording 11 times, and I still can't describe it. It is not that it is too strange. It is that my eyes want to focus on it. It is like looking at something your brain refuses to process. A shape, a wrongness. It stood over my bed for 43 minutes. Then it went back into the wall, and the wall closed, like it was never open. The entries after that were fragments, single sentences on each page. The handwriting was barely legible. May 10, it moved my furniture while I was at work. The couch was facing the other direction when I came home. May 15, it spoke. It used my voice. I heard myself saying things I've never said. May 19, I tried to leave. The door wouldn't open. Not locked. Gone. Just wall where the door should be. It came back an hour later. Like nothing happened. The last entry was on the final page. A single line, written in letters so large they filled the entire page. It is not in the walls, it is wearing the walls. I closed the journal. I sat on the floor of my new apartment, and I stared at the hole I cut in the wall. The gap between the studs, the space where the journal had been hidden. It was just a gap, 8 inches wide, 6 inches deep, nothing inside, just dust and the rough edge of old drywall. I told myself it was fiction. Someone's creative writing project, hidden in the wall as a prank. The previous tenant was messing with whoever came next. That is all. I patched the hole, I hung the shelf. I put the journal in a drawer and tried to forget about it. That was 2 weeks ago. Last night, I woke up at 2:17 a.m. I don't know why. No noise. No dream. I just opened my eyes. The wall behind my bed, the wall where I found the journal, had a crack in it. A thin, vertical crack, running from the baseboard to the ceiling. It wasn't there when I went to sleep, and the hole I patched, the hole where I found the journal, was open again. The drywall patch was on the floor. The gap between the studs was empty, but it was wider than before. Maybe 10 inches now, instead of 8. I am writing this from a coffee shop. I haven't gone back to the apartment since last night. I don't know if I will, but here is what I can. Stop thinking about. The journal said the wall folded inward, like paper, like skin, and the gap is getting bigger. Every time I patch it, it comes back wider. Whatever is behind that wall is making more room for itself.